So, hello everybody. We are here to continue talking about technology. We are going to talk about cloud. We are going to talk about digital transformation. We are going to talk about the cloud. We are going to talk about artificial intelligence. And let me introduce the four persons that are here with me today in the conference. First of all, we have, and you already listened to him, Adam from Luxor. Second, we have we have Paul from Receive. Later we have Jörg from Debt5, and the last one is Alexander from Relational. Alexander is the business development manager of the company. Jörg is the managing director of the company. Paul is the CEO of the company, and Adam is the partner of the company. So we are going to split this session in two parts. The first one is they are going to introduce themselves. They are going to introduce the company for just 1 or 2 minutes, because I think it's important to know all of them. For sure, we are going to jump, or we are going to just to talk for a minute with Adam, because he's been here for the last 15 minutes, and after that we are going to start with the questions that I hope that it's going to be interesting for all of you. So let's start, for example, with Jörg, and if you have just 1 minute, and if you mind, sure, you can introduce your company.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Jörg Olbing. I'm one of the founders from debtify.com. Have more than 20 years experience in non-performing loan business, with stations starting at ABN AMRO Bank, Avato Financial Services, as well as EOS. Before I started my own company, which I sold 4 years ago to Intrum. This gave me quite a lot of possibilities and a lot of time to start some research about the future of non-performing loan management, specifically in terms of digitalization. And if you start doing some research about digitalization, you immediately also came across platform models or all different kind of ecosystem approaches. And based on this research, mostly done in the US and mostly also done by other industries, which already stepped much deeper into digitalization, I did develop the idea from debtify.com, which I started beginning of last year together with 2 of my co-founders to bring it into reality. And I'm very happy to explain maybe today also a little bit more in detail what this is about, because at least our goal is we want to bring 3 stakeholders in our industry together on one platform, which means, for example, service providers who are offering any kind of software, any kind of services around non-performing loan are able to digitally connect and offer their services on our servicer marketplace. We have an app store where software developers, and it's getting more, who are offering any kind of software solutions around non-performing loan, are able to publish and ship their solutions around non-performing loan. And last but not least, creditors who want to make use of these services on our marketplace as well as on the apps, to give them much easier and fully API-first access to all the relevant partners in our industry.
Okay, thank you, Jörg. Let's continue with Alexander.
Yes, my name is Alex Stratoglu. I know the surname is a bit difficult, but
yes,
okay, we'll do a gallop afterwards if it's who can pronounce it easier. But okay, let's see. So just a personal note, I'm more than happy to be amongst all these esteemed colleagues. Adam, the presentation was excellent, very fruitful. And personal note, it's good to be back in Spain after 2 years, actually. To see familiar faces here, it's very nice. What we do, Relational. Us, with the other colleagues here, we are a software solutions provider. We were founded since 1995, so a pretty much established player in the European and not just the European market. Since then, we have been grown up to 300 people. So again, part of the panel here, it's good to to have more, let's say, established big players like Loxon and us, and have some startups or goods to proceed to check additional, let's say, layers of the NPL landscape, which is essential to do so. So we are 300 people operating mainly in Greece, where our headquarters are based, but we do have operations offices in 7 countries throughout the world. We focus mainly on financial services with our own proprietary tools. We have our own tools for debt management and loan origination solutions, which on top of those, there is a different business line in our company, which handles actually in collaboration with leading software providers, vendors within the market of business intelligence, data warehouse, and general ITSM, as we call it in the tech world, which is business services management. So we cover the full spectrum, let's say, of all these formation services. Down the line, what we want to achieve by having customers in banking, telcos, government sectors, utilities, insurance, I mean, you can name it all. Whenever there is a debt management aspect, you can count on us. So having done all this, very vast landscape of services, our vision is actually to cover, as we say, the full credit life cycle, from performing loans up to the sale of an REO through our own platform. So this is what we expect, and we are close to do so. As I said, we have all the tools in our hands to do so. And again, more than happy to be back in Spain, as I said, where we do have a local presence with a pan-European servicing platform, which is to grow further, we hope.
Thank you, Alexander. Let's continue with Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul Josefak. I'm the founder and CEO of Receive. We're one of the younger companies, I guess, so we've been around for about 3 years at this point. I also come into this industry from a very different perspective, so I was more on the investor side and innovation side. For many years, I actually built and ran SAP's venture group in the early 2000s, was then at a smaller venture fund in Germany, and then thereafter, I actually ran innovation for the Otto Group, which owned EOS, which was already mentioned, and one of the tasks of what we did is we were building strategic startups, primarily software companies for the Otto Group, and with a strong focus on everything that was around collections because of the ownership of EOS. We launched Receive in 2019 to take a little bit of a different approach. We're pretty much going after the same piece of the pie, which is delivering a platform to our customers. But what we're actually focusing on is the data itself, because everyone actually talks about all the communication, everyone talks about the actual collections processes, you hear all the buzzwords, AI, self-service, and whatnot. Ultimately, when we talk to our clients, we're talking about the data. It's ultimately having a platform that owns all the data from start to finish, and ultimately from the originator all the way through to the NPL industry. And if you really think about what ultimately everyone is trying to do, primarily people at conferences like this or in this industry, is trying to take advantage of that data. So yes, we are providing software, but the focus of what we deliver is to take advantage of the data which is housed within our platform. And by getting that data into the platform as early as possible, we can drive the data hygiene. One of the biggest problems is that data hygiene ultimately gets degraded as it goes through the value chain. And if you're at the tail end of the value chain and the data hygiene is not there, you're ultimately going to suffer. So that's what we're trying to address with Receive.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's start with the first section of this panel, and we're going to talk about digital transformation. We're going to talk about automatization. I think the sector is moving really very fast. The sector needs technology, because without technology, it's going to be very difficult to reach all the numbers that at the end the portfolios needs, and also we need to be much more efficiency. So let's talk about that. Let's start, if you want, with Adam. Adam, Loxon clients and services are spread around different regions in Europe, West, East and South Europe, Middle East, and also Asia. Which are the differences that you find with your clients when you are working with them regarding the digital transformation?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, we are present on 4 continents, and we can definitely see some trends and similarities on the field of collection here, we can see that oftentimes some regions skip certain development phases. Like the latest skip was performed by Asia right now, which much earlier started to use mobile everywhere for payment, for collection, for self-service, like all of this. Previously, it was, okay, previously, like 15 years ago, but SMS, for example, was earlier used in collections in Eastern Europe than Western Europe. I believe Western Europe started only later on. So this is, again, because of skipping some development stages and move forward. So this is definitely one thing that you can see all around. But we also see, and maybe Alex can confirm or not confirm later on, because they're also on the market for some time, that when we look at requirements or collection tenders or actual collection implementations, we see that the differences are getting smaller and smaller. So even when we look at collection tenders in Africa, they're so much similar. I was astonished. I was surprised, like, hey, it's Africa. I mean, but no, it's getting similar. Of course, there are some infrastructure drawbacks, but still. So the differences between these regions is definitely getting smaller. So globalization is absolutely here also in this industry. We can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's continue with Alexander. Alexander, companies are moving really very fast on their digital transformation. Which are the drivers on the digital transformation for the NPL industry, and how important are the alliances between different companies in order to speed up this transformation?
Yes, as you said, it's actually, digital transformation is a very hot term currently for the past years. Just to note here that it's not about technology, not solely about technology, okay? Because we have been taking part in projects where, okay, I need a new system. It's not about having a new system. It's for sure having a new system. This is why we are here. But there is also the change management process that we need to take under consideration. There is a standard clause that you need to have system, processes, people. Okay, I totally agree that above that you need to have data as well. Especially in the NPL landscape, what we are addressing heavily is, of course, data. Most probably we will discuss for data as we proceed. Validity or validation of data and all of that. But above that, you need to have, perfect management information, let's say, capabilities, in order to be able to handle data properly and proceed within this direction. And when I say to have perfect management information capabilities, because as we heard today, the NPL landscape is moving very fast. It has been, but it is and will be moving very fast. You need to be agile. Okay, again, a very hot term, agility and all of that, but you need to be at the end of the day. And how you can do that? By having flexible, configurable systems, out-of-the-box solutions, and all of that, in order for the piece of the puzzle, the system, at least to be in place. The other parts of the puzzle, processes and people, are part of the whole, let's say, landscape that needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you very much. George, as Alexander mentioned, digital transformation doesn't mean only a new system, but also needs simplicity, and has one of the drivers. So how an IPA system ecosystem could help to transform an NPL industry, and also how the high manuality processes in practice can be resolved by digital transformation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think I can give you really a pretty easy example how an ecosystem can provide a better NPL workout. Because I think everybody agrees that if you start doing real estate-backed non-performing loan workout, the success on your workout is not mainly depending on how you're dealing with the loan. So how nice or good your loan management has been done. It highly depends on your asset. So really, do you know really how you can sell your asset? Do you really catch all the opportunities? But so far, there was really never a deeply integrated connection between real estate CRM systems on the one side, which keeps care of your asset and which the brokers are working on, and on the other side, a loan management system. So what we did, we put both of them together. So on the German market, for example, we partnered with the two major players on the German market. One is Scout24, FlowFact. The other one is OnOffice, which are representing 80% of all the brokers on the German market. And we integrated a Debtify edition inside of their solution, so fully access to our servicer markets. Whenever a broker already did working for banks on the German market or for servicers, they really can just, with an API integration, within 1 minute, present their solutions on our servicer marketplace. And on the other hand, we also started this digital integration of the loan management debt collection software systems, also on a digital base. So this ecosystem really is providing a 100% streamlined access to all the data your broker is generating inside of his system. And this offers huge opportunities in terms of broker performance. This offers huge opportunities also on portfolio level. So really get a lot of access of data once you start connecting the right kind of systems together, covered and concentrated on one ecosystem.
Okay, thank you very much. Paul, we've been talking about companies, we've been talking about simplicity. Let's talk something about the clients. Without clients, it's very difficult to transform. How difficult is to combine companies and clients during the digital transformation?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we've heard already that the industry seems to be evolving faster and faster. I think one of the sad realities that from a technology perspective, and also coming into this industry from completely a different side of the equation, the sad reality is that on the technology layer, everything is so far behind. Everyone talks about technology and we're so modern and whatnot, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the customers or the clients, it's so backwards in comparison to other industries. And we're not talking 5 years behind, we're talking sometimes 10 or 15 years behind. We're meeting clients where we're absolutely shocked by what they're actually running as systems to do their business. They've been able to continue using old technology, but they're ultimately going to have to compete. And we heard from some of the presentations before that there's challengers coming into these industries. Those challengers are going to win by focusing on technology. And if you really think about the players on both sides of the equation, be it the customers or the clients, whoever is software-driven or technology-driven ultimately is going to have an advantage. Everything is digitizing. Everyone's going through digital transformations. And if you think about it, the large enterprises, which are ultimately driving the change, they will define what level of technology is necessary. So you have to ultimately adapt to what your customer ultimately expects of you. So I think the enterprises themselves are going to set the bar. Whoever wants to be most competitive will become technology-driven or technology-first. And ultimately, everyone else is going to have to catch up. But I think that the status or the situation we're in right now is that both sides have to do quite a bit of catching up. And we heard the words change management. I think that's also a huge part of the equation because you have to get the mindset changed. You have to get people thinking about how to use technology instead of basically doing what they've been doing for the last 20 years. Yeah. So it's tough. It's tough, but I think it will be driven by the market, the competition, and you're just going to see an acceleration on the technology front that's probably even faster than the evolution of the actual industry itself.
Okay, thank you very much. The last question of this section is going to be for all of you, and let's talk about how fast is moving the sector, how fast is the clients demanding new solutions, and how can you combine these new solutions that the clients are demanding with the digital transformation and with the new business solution that you are developing. Are you ahead of the market? Are you behind to the market? 1 month, 1 year, 10 years? So let's start, I don't know,
okay.
for value portfolio.
So here, this I believe, but I also mentioned in the presentation that two layers are important. One is the technological layer, which should be flexible enough to keep up with it. But on its own, I believe it's not going to be possible. We also need to add this business layer where the business models need to be prepared. Because if you have a pre-built business model, imagine, which is parameterizable and configurable, imagine how much faster you can react to a change. You don't need to pre-develop it. So it's much easier if you have some pre-built solutions. And I think that in the future, it's not going to be that everyone, even software vendors, bring everything to the table. There's going to be a much higher level of specialization on every side, I believe, in these ecosystems. And these specialized modules will be used, and this is going to be a key for the change. And this is why I believe that infrastructurally, this industry needs to change much better towards the open API, microservice-based technology to support this.
Okay. Paul?
I would also add that one of the key things that a lot of the players have to think about is you don't want to build everything yourself. And if you look at some of the bigger players, they tried to build their own things over the years. And ultimately, there's going to be quasi-specialists from the software side who can offer solutions. And the customers of the software provider should focus on their core business. And a large DCA or whatnot has no business developing their own software. There's best-of-breed technology that they can acquire, and they can leapfrog quasi 10 years of evolution if they try and do it themselves. So I couldn't agree more that you have to basically say, look, take the solutions that can get you ahead and focus on what your core business is.
Okay, thank you. Jörg?
Yeah, I totally agree with every word from you, Paul.
Sorry.
If you're talking
We're all biased, by the way.
If you talk about digitalization, as a very first rule, you need to open up your system. And this means you have to develop really a deeply API footprint. At first, to get access to all the possibilities in future around non-performing loan management, as well as also to ship your solutions to other participants in the market. And we started in Italy and Spain mid of this year, and we see really a lot of different strategies so far in the industry. So Rami, they still work in very isolated systems, still believe they can do everything better by themselves. And then there are these ones who really realized, okay, there's always somebody outside of my organization who can do it much better than I can do by myself. But really to get access to all this information, to get access to these resources, you have to develop an API footprint strategy to be able to start the digitalization of your company.
Okay, thank you. Alexander, you're the last. I promise the next time you will be
Let me be the first one, because right now I have to quote Paul and Adam, of course, but it is what it is, okay, at the end of the day. Just to do a summary even. So I totally agree with all what has been said up to now. I totally agree. I mean, from our side as well, we keep on facing customers that, okay, why do I need a system? Why do I need to do that? I can do that in-house. And my answer is always, stick to your business and let us stick to our business. And let us combine our businesses in order to have a fruitful result. Because, it is what it is. From our end, of course, data-wise, I totally agree. We need to be open. Okay, the closed systems era, it's far be gone and should be at the end of the day, in order to be open, everyone. And at the end of the day, I totally agree again with, I think Paul said that there are customers that are 10, 15 years behind technology-wise. I can sign that even. But even at that point, you need to be flexible enough not to jumpstart them to go 20 years ago, but gradually pick up the points and proceed like that. We do have customers that actually, the funds actually that do have single tickets even, and the constant concern is why do I need something as I have 5 loans to handle, 10 loans to handle. If we exclude the regulation part, which, it goes without saying that if there is other regulation, you need to have a system down the line. Even technology-wise, it makes your life much easier to have a system up there, to know that it functions properly, and to, at the end of the day, to have a report throughout the system, which provides you exactly the one page that you need. So I think that's that.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we already covered this first section. Let's jump into the second one. And we are going to talk about data. We are going to talk artificial intelligence. So let's start with you, Jörg. Data is key on this new area, because at the end we need data for everything. So why do we need a digital NPL ecosystem in Europe to connect creators, the service providers, and the software developers? And also, the second question is, how can artificial intelligence help us on this proposal?
Mm-hmm. I agree with Adam, because to really start making use of artificial intelligence, you need a lot of data. Without data, artificial intelligence is not working. And you even need it in real time to make quick decisions. And to get access to all this data, at first you need to open up your own system, so make really access to your own data, but also enrich it with external data. So make use of as much other resources of data to enrich your data. And then I think very soon we will see that artificial intelligence will overtake human decisions in a totally different way. So I'm not talking about rating or scoring system or some very mechanical systems about artificial intelligence. I'm talking that, you know, even the way how to develop a strategy can be done by artificial intelligence by themselves. And for this, really, you need to give access to your data, enrich it, and an ecosystem is probably the best way to really have in real-time access to all necessary data, and then put AI on top of it, and let's develop some strategies. It will not really take long. And we can already see in a lot of other industries that the acceleration of speed, of improvement, of strategies, it's amazing, and we are very, I agree, Paul, still very back, but the ones who will be on the forefront, they will get a lot of advantages, really, by using artificial intelligence in NPL workout strategies.
Okay, thank you very much. Alexander, next one is for you. Yes. Companies are moving really very fast on the digital transformation, but also focusing, as I mentioned before, on data. Do you think that the technology is progressing, providing these solutions as fast as the services, the companies need these services?
Yes, I mean, as we have identified up to now, it's all about data, okay? So, and data and the possibility of having integration capabilities in order to gather data fast and in a structural manner. Because, you know, we are receiving data in an unstructured manner, even, you know, from Excels, whatever, emails, and all of that. So you need to be able to structure the unstructured data, in quotes. So in order to do that, you need to be technologically, it should be technologically feasible to do so. And how, and what's the answer on that? Through APIs, as we answered up to now, you can, as we say, talk to different systems, even systems or open sources, because in various countries there are public data sources that the debt servicer or whoever would like to get hold on that can do so. But here technology comes again. In order to do so, you need to have an API, you need to have a way in order to receive, to import, as we say, this data. In order to, at the end of the day, for the service to take that and proceed to collection strategies, to optimum ways of collecting the debt, or even, you know, handle customer-wise the approach, to check on any amicable approaches or even any other approaches, depending on the asset class itself. So, you know, in order to wrap up my thoughts on that, it's actually two things that everybody should have in mind. Data validation aspects, for sure, because you need to do so. We have seen cases that, especially on collateral management, that data is not sufficient or are very, very, you know, bad in quality-wise. So you need to be able to validate such the data itself, and of course to the openness as well of things, to have open systems ready to import, but also to export information. So I think these are the two main ingredients that will create a good recipe down the line.
Okay, thank you very much. Paul, let's connect self-services tools with data, with artificial intelligence. Which is your view, which is your approach? How do you think that is going to, what is going to happen in the next years with that?
Well, we already see it happening now. I mean, I always take a little bit of a step back when we talk about AI, because it's so misunderstood. And ultimately, what the majority of people, when they talk about AI, it's actually machine learning. So if you really, you know, most people think about AI as you know, the Terminator or completely fully autonomous machines, which is not the case in collections. We always talk about machine learning and basically saying that if you get the right data into the right quasi part of the platform, you can make everything self-service. And not just for the end customer, i.e. the debtor, but also for the users of that technology. And I think kind of everything that's been mentioned here over and over that the industry, or at least a level of technology, is so far behind that you have to get the ultimate users of the technology onboarded as quickly as possible. So quasi the operators have to self-service and self-onboard. That's avoiding the whole SAP problem, right? You implement SAP, it takes 3 years, and then you throw it out 5 years later and you spent 100 million. It has to go fast, it has to go quasi-intuitively, that's all self-service. Conversely, for the debtor, when he wants to interact with you, he or she wants to interact with you, they need to be able to do everything, or as much as possible, themselves. That's what they're used to. Especially if you think about the younger generations, not just doing it on their mobile, they're used to everything being self-service. They don't want to talk to anyone. So you have to make sure that you're taking the data, and i.e. the machine learning, that you're able to quasi-leverage and get as much of what your platform does for both sides, automated and self-service, to avoid the time lost of onboarding.
Okay, thank you. Adam, developing the right scoring is crucial for the NPL sector. Which is the impact that the data is having on the developing of these new tools?
Yeah, let me just continue your thoughts, because exactly if you talk about self-service, it opened up a whole new era and possibilities, because it's a very rich source of data that you can see. When you touch your mobile, you have some personalized PTP, for example, on your mobile. You were hesitating, you first pressed this, but you didn't hit actually OK. You have so many indicators that 10 years ago, what did we have in personalization? Maybe for VIPs we had something. No, it's a totally different world. And we need to distinguish between using data and providing data. So collection system, also as you mentioned, that provides data also to other sources, to LGD analytics, to loan origination, to other sources. And the richness of data is rapidly expanding that we can provide to other systems. And also for the collections, we can take data from other systems and use it. I believe that when we make a deal with a new client at loan origination, that's a contact point. And afterwards, collection is the richest point when you get basically most of the information. So it's very well worth utilizing this type of data, and not just let it waste, but really think about it, how you can utilize it in the most meaningful manner, potentially with AI, and potentially utilizing it in the strategy setting, or even about what type of exit strategy, if it's a late phase, you would like to propose to become cost-effective and beat your competitors. So I will stop here, I will not continue, but I could go on and on this.
Okay, thank you. Last question from this section is for all of you, and it's again talking about data, about inefficiency of the use of the data, and how can the artificial intelligence help us to really use the data, because from your side you are developers, and probably when you start working on developing a new system, you think that everything goes normal, but from the other side, at the end you have a huge information, and what we can say to you is that normally we are wasting like half of the information that we have, and we are not using that. So how can the artificial intelligence help to us? And also, if you can provide some real example of something that you are, where you applying that artificial intelligence, could be very useful for the audience. I don't know.
I'm happy to start. I mean, just to give you a very specific example, not naming any names, but having 1,500 templates of how to threaten someone to pay is not the right strategy. And if you see basically all the data points in all of our platforms, I mean, we're ultimately all getting the same data points. If you think about how you can implement the AI to customize the message, just customizing the message to the person that you're actually communicating with already creates such a difference in relation to what we have today. And then you can even go additional steps further. You can contact them using the modality that they like to be contacted by. You can interface with them by knowing how they've behaved in the past. And you can ultimately completely change the approach just by taking the data and putting AI on top of it to flip the way you talk to the debtor. Just a specific example.
Okay. Alexander?
I totally agree with Paul. I totally agree. I mean, in our minds, we have exactly the same example actually with the plates. But as we say, it's actually two things again: content and time perspectives. Yeah. And how in order to elaborate a bit on that, content is actually what Paul said. You can live without having 1,500 plates. You can customize the message to pass on your customers or your debtors based on certain patterns, as we say, based on their payment patterns, based on demographic patterns as well, because you can utilize demographics as well. And an example on time perspective is actually an exercise we have run. Because there are various ways in order to contact a customer. It's by phone, we have dialers, automated calls, etc. There are SMSs, there are self-service portals and all of that. So how time comes in, especially when dialing, because dialing is a bit intrusive, let's say. It's not so indirect like an SMS or the chat, for instance. There is the best time to call logic. And you can have that through AI, meaning that you can, through demographics, through payment patterns, through whatever you can have on data, you can get your hands on, you can design when there is the best time to call a customer, when I say best, in order to have optimum results. So what it's all about is data and usage of data. Okay, so it's a real life example which it could be interesting to the audience as well.
Thank you. Jörg?
Yeah, not a lot of things to add anymore. I think it's pretty clear. So there are 3 steps of developing also your AI strategy. At first, start your API footprint, really open up your system in both directions. Then you will be able to start your digitalization. And on the top of this, you can start your AI, which gives you a huge advantage as the last step against your competitors, and which you can see really in other industries might be, this point where the decision of the market will see if you will survive the digitalization of our industry, or you don't get this good strategies like other companies did already with AI. But this depends really on the just take the first steps and be able to get access to artificial intelligence.
And an interesting aspect of what everyone's talking about, I mean, I always use this example. If you look at the collection strategies from the perspective of collections, you're going to probably look at it from the wrong perspective. If you think about the way technology is used today, everyone knows Facebook. Most people probably don't even use it anymore. But if you think about Facebook and the amount of quasi-interactions that Facebook has with each of their users on the stream, they can test something 1 billion times in like an hour. So they can adapt everything they put onto that stream based on these 1 billion touch points that they have on that stream, and then you can get serviced, so to speak, for ads or whatever. I don't want to get into politics, but anyway. But if you look at the collection strategies and you think of it that way, and you take all the data points that you have throughout the whole value chain, how you can optimize the software to basically react, it's a completely different paradigm. And it's taking and learning something from Facebook and switching it to collection strategies. Just a way of using AI, for example.
Okay, thank you, Alan. I don't know if you have...
Okay, I believe to be efficient here, I can summarize maybe in a 3-step, very, very simple process. Like, step number 1 would be data governance, just to determine like how you're going to collect your data, what are the rules, how you do your metadata management, and so on. Step number 2, which is particularly important for collections, is to track the data lineage, where you check the validity of your source. Particularly for collection, you got so much garbage because you're at end of the food chain, right? Or I don't know which end, the wrong or the right end. But anyhow, you're at the end of the chain, and all of the garbage that was accumulated before exponentially is in your system. So knowing the data lineage, like knowing exactly what you work with, everybody knows garbage in, garbage out, so it's also true here. That's step number 2. And step number 3 is be able, and we are not there yet, I think as an industry, is not only detecting correlation, but also causality. Like, is there a cause type of relationship? And even regulators are getting there with the explainable AI that they call it. Like, it should not be a black box 100%. So there's more and more demand that they want to understand what is happening. Of course, when you're talking about provisioning levels, for example, based on scoring numbers, then you need to understand, based on what you set the provisions, regulatory will come after you. Or if someone comes to you, why am I not getting these better conditions? You need to have some sort of explanation. So these are going to be also questions here. So this is just a very brief summary how we see it.
Okay, thank you very much, all of you. Let's jump to the last section, and we are talking about which are the vectors of the vector values for the digital transformation. Let's start with you, Adam. Flexibility. Flexibility is going to be one of the drivers. Which is the approach that you are having on that?
Yeah, here I might repeat myself because I already mentioned it, that flexibility, so I'm going to save time because I see that we're approaching the final deadline soon. But for the technology, of course, it needs to be there, and I agree we are far with the technology. But technology, yeah, it can be flexible, but you don't need flexible. Speed is also a very important factor here. Not only the flexibility, not only reliability, but also the speed. You want to achieve the same or better than your competitors, but faster. I think that's the name of the game. So for that, you need to have some sort of pre-built tools, and these pre-built tools also need to have some sort of built-in already flexibility, and only if you go beyond this level, then use no-code platform, API first, mobile first type of approaches. So I truly believe flexibility is the key, and there are different forms of flexibility that you should meet to be successful.
Thank you. Jörg, let's take, for example, the land registry like an example of need of info improvement on the NPL industry. Which are the current problems that, from your point of view, still has the industry? Taking that example.
Coming back to my example, for example, of property secured or asset secured non-performing loans, you still have so many participants in the whole process. You need auction servicer, foreclosure representation, you need brokers, valuators, AVM. So this whole integration of all the involved parties, and it's pretty much the same also in unsecured business, it's a huge challenge. So I think you cannot even do it one-to-one. You need the kind of environment where once you get connected to a system, you have access to all the other participants. Like you can pick up whatever kind of AVM company you want to integrate, or easily you have access to all the brokers working in your field, or valuators or whatever. So we can really do it step by step. So don't start something like just a single solution based on your system by connecting one-to-one the providers you want to work with. Better, create or join something where you can find already all the market participants who open up their system digitally. It's much easier.
Okay, thank you, Alexander. All-in-one solution is key on this sector. Do you think that covering loan management, covering day-to-day operations, covering omni-channel approach, collateral areas, it's going to be key for the next years?
Look, in order to get into our customer shoes, we have been hearing a lot that I don't want to get involved with too many vendors. I would like to have 1, 2, 3, it depends on the volumes of each customer, in order from their end to be easily handled. Because you can understand that if there is a bank actually that has 20 vendors, it's something to take under consideration. So especially, banks are, more robust organizations, etc. They have the capacity also to operate and so on and so forth. But if you take under consideration that servicers are much leaner than the bank, then it goes without saying that they would like to have even one vendor, if that can be possible, of course. So within this mindset, let's say, our answer, and it goes without saying that it's evident in our case at least, that the answer is yes. You need to, our system can provide such aspects, in order to, as I said initially in my initial quote, that our vision is to have end-to-end, from, let's say, performing actual aspects as well, pre-collections even, up to the point that you can go to the sale of an REO. So we consider this to be, the full credit life cycle that a servicer can establish, because we can, in Italy, in past years, most probably down the line, there were UTPs, as they call it, unlike to pay portfolio. So we are seeing not just NPLs here, but actually performing loans, okay, which based on some criteria are likely to be paid. So this is why I put also performing aspect in this equation. So we do consider that the leaner organization is, the less vendors they would like to have on their heads in order to manage. So this is where we put our bet in order to have an end-to-end. On top of that, of course, in order to quote all the other participants, it's not that we want to reinvent the wheel if we don't have to. We are more than flexible, more than open to discuss for particular niches of the business in order to check with potential collaborations. It goes without saying as well.
Okay. Paul, and you mentioned before, but people relationship, how we connect each other, and we are using different technologies that we used before. Before we used just the telephone, but now we are using technologies like Instagram, like Facebook, like everything. Do you think that also this trend is affecting to the sector? And could you provide some examples of how can we use the technology, or how the new technology is using for connect with the people?
So I think we kind of partially answered that to an extent. Yeah. Yes, the technology and quasi communication channels and personalization, and I can use 50 buzzwords.
I'm thinking about Instagram and everything.
I could throw them out left and right. I think we've also mentioned that it's all there. It's part of the industry. There's no way around it. I think there's going to be some shifts of how people want to interact. I think especially when it comes to like payments and things like that, where there's going to be also kind of new technologies coming into play to expedite the actual payment process. But I think we've said everything that needed to be said about customization, personalization, and whatnot. So I don't want to belabor the point. I hope that answers the question, though.
Okay, last question for all of you. And again, let's talk about digital transformation, data intelligence, artificial intelligence, but also alliance with different players from other sectors. Do you think that is going to be part of this, the transformation of this sector?
Do you mean other people coming into the sector? Well, you already see it happening. I mean, there's again, Jörg was talking about, everyone's actually talking about APIs. And if you think about if the API environment opens up, that's the benefit of it, that you can actually plug in other players. So I would definitely say that your business is part of the shift there to try and actually get third parties plugged in. And if you think about it, there's so many technologies out there that are now parts of core systems that don't need to be part of those systems. They could just be a plug-in. It's basically a commodity. You just pick the best one, plug it in, and you're up and running.
Jörg, anything you want to add?
I told you, you don't even need to imagine in future, because it already happened in some other industries. Let's check, for example, e-commerce. Exactly. 10 years ago, it was like big software available on the market. It was very heavy also to integrate. Right now, it's for example, Shopify, something like this. So they're just providing very, very simple database, but whoever is offering any kind of service can easily adapt and offer their solution. Shipment, payment, whatever. So you really got access to all the necessary information which is available outside. And then they are stepping more and more into a shared economy. So even there's a lot of little tiny solutions available which are easily accessible just with a mouse click. And it really helps to start doing your workout much more easy, and also helps really to, if you offer any solutions on places like that, to get easily access to creditors and whoever needs your service, also without any implementation shipment cost or something like this.
And if you do it right, it's significantly cheaper as well.
Yeah.
If you have to do it right? Because you could have 300 vendors all of a sudden, and you probably end up paying more than you originally did for your SAP system. But if you do it right, you can take your costs down significantly, and you have the flexibility as well.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, Alexander.
It's actually, as I said, in order to quote all the gentlemen here, it's actually, especially as we see the services, we like to have an umbrella vendor, let's say. Let's call it like that. but this umbrella vendor could be, anyone, but to plug in themselves, niche small piece of the puzzle. Because at the end of the day, the servicer will have one contact point to check. So all the other could be add-ons, as we said. A classic example, a real life example on ours, as I said, we do not want to reinvent the wheel, okay? It's actually the chatbot, which it's, again, a very hot term, okay, chatbots and all of that. In-house, we thought that it is better not to reinvent the wheel, okay, but to go to a certain company that does that for some time now, in order to integrate with them and check actually how this can evolve. So I think this is the key ingredient down the line, strategic alliances, I don't know how you name it, that actually can cover the full piece of the puzzle. To have, especially for this, in order for us to provide optimum services to our customers, I think this is the optimum thing to do.
Adam?
I think that ecosystems are already evolving. It's already here. It's not the future. A couple of years ago, it might be far-stretched, the analogy, but PSD2 were coming in, and from the regulatory point of view, and they all had different type of APIs from the bank point of view. There was no financial incentive to it. I think the real PSDX or whatever is going to be forced from the profit-oriented ecosystems and the competition on this market. And this is what we already experiencing, and we see the players coming here. And I think it's going to be extremely exciting to live these times and find out who can be professional, really professional as on a core competence level and in what. And we don't need to be afraid of this new situation. We should embrace it. Financial institutions should also embrace it, find exactly what are they best of, and act accordingly and find your market niche. The market is still huge and it's getting bigger. That's the good news. Number of players is growing, but market is also growing. Find your place and come in.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think that we have only 5 minutes left. Anyone want to make any question? Yeah.
Thank you. Jan Petersen, Organist. I would like to stress a little bit the topic of the panel, meaning technology as value driver. So I got 2 questions. The first question is the main value driver, which brings artificial intelligence, only for plain vanilla receivables, such as consumer loans? Yeah. And secondly, having I think Jörg was stating that if you have asset-backed real estate non-performing loans, for example, you just need access to the broker and he sells off the real estate. As a value driver from a non-performing loan investor perspective, that's not a real value driver, as you may need to consider injecting capex to increase the cash flow, to increase the value of the real estate. So will that be an automatic process, or do we still need human brain for that?
Let me answer at least at the first part of the question. So, as you said, actually AI, the main business segment that it can cover is actually what you said, the mass consumer loans with unsecured or secured. So we consider that having big volumes of accounts, cases, customers, etc., this is where AI comes in place. Because actually, if you use AI, it will reduce your own costs. AI, at least from my, this is a personal quote, from my perspective, especially for corporates or more complex situations, it's not the way to go. There, you need to be human-driven, meaning that because if it's a corporate, you need to much more complex, restructuring processes, etc., in place. Then I don't believe that AI, at least as we speak right now, in 10 years, could be. But as we speak right now, I do believe that only in the mass volumes you can have proper AI implementation.
But knowing your business, Jan, if you think about a lot of the processes that happen now, so not at the tail end, i.e., again, consumer is much easier to quasi get technology value drivers at the consumer. But in your business, if you think a lot of the manual processes that are being still done by analysts or whoever is ultimately doing them, a lot of the technology value drivers could be quasi at that layer. Yeah. I.e., you can optimize the actual teams that are working around these projects, And that's where, even from an AI perspective, you can optimize and drive value using technology. But I have to agree that today it's the mass market is where you actually have the most benefit.
Yeah, when I told about my example, it's really about residential area. I'm not sure which kind of investment strategy you're following, but so this is not really about big complex developing where you need to hire asset managers. We are really talking about the mass market, but still, even in the mass market, the whole communication between the loan management and all involved parties. It can be an asset manager, valuators, brokers, foreclosure representation. It's still heavily done by email, mostly also unsecured, so also in terms of GDPR. But sometimes not the best strategy, a lot of phone calls, so you cannot put any reporting, you cannot analyze it, you will never be able to put AI on top of it. So our way is really to structure the whole data stream, to avoid whatever it's kind of unsorted, to decrease the inefficiency by email, by phone call, something like this, to put really everything into a digital data stream, and then later you are able to put also in secret business AI on top of it, because you have access of the data. But it's not working for maybe a big shopping center or something like this. No, this is, I think, will still be manual work.
You need a future business model as well then. So, to go for the shopping centers, which we learned this morning, having UK banks finance shopping center in Spain, so you can't put artificial intelligence on. You really need to set up a strategy individually for that one. Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, I don't have. We have enough time. Yeah, we have for one more question.
It looks obvious that technology could be super good for the whole industry, not only for the PCAs, but also for the banks. Yet they are well known for not using all of the amount of information that they have within their systems. What do you think is preventing them from taking full advantage of their technology and information available?
So I'll jump in first. I mean, I think one of the biggest problems that I've seen personally is that especially if you look at specific departments, they're almost 5 or 10 years behind the curve, right? So everyone was focusing on the top line revenues and that part of the business, and now it's only starting to trickle down into the back office. And we're kind of all part of the back office, right? So it's the time that we're at right now, everyone's addressing the back office and it's discovering data that no one really cared about. I mean, if you think about collections, it's usually somewhere in the basement. I mean, that's the thought process around it. No one cares about those guys. Just as long as they do their job, who cares? And even when we sell, if you go to someone who's focused on the top line and you bring up collections as an example, it's not top of mind for them. No one becomes CEO or whatever of their company because they got collections under control. But it's becoming more and more relevant, and the data is being discovered. And hence, the fact that people are starting to realize, oh, there's data there that I can use. I can know what my collections processes look like to ultimately affect my lending strategy, to become more aggressive, because I know that I'll recover it in collections. That mindset is now triggering because people are looking, where can I squeeze out more and more benefits? And there's a huge amount of data sitting there ready to be taken advantage of.
It's a gold mine, not only for the collections, but also for the origination point of it. So because, again, this is your interaction point. Yep. If you go one step further, when you talk to the clients and then you analyze it maybe via an AI, I mean, you translate it to text, you analyze it, you can get tremendous amount of information about that customer potential behavior or reaction or some CRM messages. You can build huge amount of application on top of it, and I'm sure it will happen actually eventually.
Okay, any other question? Oh.
Hi, Nick Jenkins. Having worked as a portfolio manager, I completely agree with the need for good data and data analysis. I think one of the things that I'd quite like to highlight if you're looking at a non-performing loan portfolio is your dependency on third parties, the state, for example, the court system. If you're trying to improve the value of your portfolio, I think that area is an area that's really missing because it's very manual. You're basically reading individual property registry reports, etc. And I think, you've talked very much about collections and collections data and volume of data, but I think focusing on some of those areas that are real blockers to achieving the value would also be something worth thinking about.
Can I quote on that?
Yeah, sure.
Please. Excellent remark, actually, because we have pretty much missed the legal aspect, because actually this is where the framework comes in place. Okay, there are frameworks in each jurisdiction for collection, but the legal are pretty much, streamlined. So systems, and again in our case, this is where where you can have streamlines. Basically, you have also systems in place because the process is already identified. Let's say. So this is a case where actually systems can provide significant assistance to the end users in order to provide additional resources, additional information needed. Within this context, of course, we have to take into consideration the macro, let's say, level, which is actually country-wise and regulations as well. If you take, for instance, Greece, from where we come from, it's actually the legal framework was something to take into consideration when you applied. Guillermo most probably laughs because he he knows how legal in Greece takes place. If you have a very slow legal framework, nevertheless, the system you have to apply based on the legal framework. So, servicers, banks, all the stakeholders must go back to macro level in order to check the way forward. Systems are there to support. Of course, you can provide additional resources, additional information, etc. But you have to take all of these under consideration in order to check the way ahead.
Okay, so thank you very much for everybody. Thank you, Alexander. Thank you, George. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Adam, for joining us. And thanks, everybody. So it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.